We are talking with Ken Keffer, local author, environmentalist, traveler, outdoorsman. Hi, Ken.
Hey there, thanks for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your book?
Yeah, I grew up here in Northeast Wyoming and have always been really drawn to the outdoors. And so I've had this idea for a book that sort of marches us through the seasons. And so Earth Almanac, we tried to release it for the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. Sort of, like I said, it's a seasonal title, so it's a daily nature nugget. There's bird stuff, mammal stuff, plant things, there's some astronomy, some geology. I really tried to cover, all of the aspects of nature.
And so you grew up in Wyoming. Tell us a little bit about your past and how you got to be an author of books.
Kind of growing up, hiking the bighorns here, and my one set of grandparents were cattle ranchers and my other set of grandparents was a taxidermist, and so I had kind of that background of nature things, and really just grew up, my mom taught me how to fish and my dad taught me how to hunt. And so I was always outside growing up, and then, going through school, I had some great mentors too. My background though, I went off to college at the University of Wyoming. I got a degree in wildlife biology and management, and so I was gonna be a scientist, I was gonna be a researcher. And for, a number of years, I did seasonal projects. So I worked with prairie dogs in Thunder Basin National Grassland. I did a project in Alaska studying flying squirrels. I went to Mongolia, to the Gobi Desert, to chase camels around. But all of these experiences, what I really enjoyed was talking to people about the research and the projects. And so I shifted out of the biology realm and more into that environmental education scene. So I worked for the Audubon Wyoming, it's Audubon Rockies now, but the National Audubon Society here in Casper. I've done a number of nonprofit organizations since then, but all of that has led to that kind of communications being, where I thrive. It's kind of the intersection of people and science is where I work, so.
What spurred Earth Almanac? What brought that on? And also, you collaborated with an illustrator. So tell us a little bit about that project and the process that you went through to do that.
The idea for Earth Almanac, I think it probably goes back to my college days. I spent summers in Grand Teton National Park working as a field biologist, and there was a wonderful book called For Everything There's a Season, and that really talks about sort of the phenology, sort of the timing of natural events. And so I've loved that concept of, things happen in an orderly fashion throughout the year, and if you pay attention you can sort of know what's happening and what to expect. And also things like star dates and bird note, those little daily entries about nature. So it's sort of that idea to all come together. It's silly to write a nationwide phenology book because things that are happening in Florida are not the same things that are happening in Wyoming. So that did give me a lot of flexibility with the book though. The book itself, I worked with Mountaineers Press, which is a nonprofit environmental book publisher and organization. And they loved the idea, and they'd worked with Jeremy Collins, the illustrator, in the past. His work is just, honestly, it's my favorite part of the book is the illustrations now. He did such a great job.
Yeah. It is so beautiful how it all comes together and has the daily entries, and then you get the actual picture, which is always nice to have a visual.
And the collaboration part of it, that really forced me ahead of time to lay out the entire book. I probably had 90% of the topics from the very beginning and said, these are the things that we want to touch on. And then along with the editor, we picked out the ones to illustrate, and then the writing process, and I really had a pretty tight deadline for this one because, like I said, we were trying to hit that Earth Day release to kind of match the Earth Almanac theme for it. So I spent basically 5 of the 6 months leading into my wedding writing a book on my nights and weekends. So
wow.
I have a very supportive wife.
So Ken, tell me a little bit more about the other books that you have published.
My first books were kids' books. I wrote the Kids Outdoor Adventure book, 448 Things to Do in Nature Before You Grow Up. So it was like an activity guide, and that one too had a seasonal component to it. Then I did some animal fact and a myth-busting book for kids. I got to work on the Ranger Rick National Parks book, which is a really exciting opportunity. And then one of the other books I did was hiking Wyoming's Bighorn Mountains. And so my grandpa joked, he's like, you could write that off the top of your head. And I was like, well, I have been hiking it for all of these years, Grandpa, but it would be so much better if I could come and pound the dirt and, sort of redo some of the entries and stuff. And so, so that project was great fun. I actually had a couple of summers to work with on that.
With Earth Almanac, your recent book, what would you say you want your readers to take away with?
That one, I'm really proud of that title, and I think the thing that I really try to remind folks is that nature is everywhere. You don't have to be in the Bighorns, you don't have to go to Yellowstone to find nature. Nature's in downtown Gillette. You can find, insects, you can find birds everywhere. You can see the huge migrations happening. You can watch the seasons change, and so anything starts at that local backyard level. And so I say, it's sort of adventures from backyard to mountaintop, and all of those across the spectrum are important. And so for Earth Almanac, it was a fun project because it highlights a lot of the local greatest hits of nature all around the country. And
Tell us, where can people find your books? Where are they available at?
yeah, so Gillette, Teachers Corner, Kids Marts always carry my books. They've been big supporters from my very first release, and I really appreciate that. So they usually have copies of everything on hand. I try to get back and sign autographs whenever I can, so that's a great spot. Lots of the titles are available online. You can go to kenkeffer.net and get to access points for any of the online orders. And so, yeah, they're out there and available.